Okay, so the intraventricular conduction delays is probably the most interesting part of the cardiac system for me because I never really understood the bundle branch block. People will always be like, "Oh, the bunny ears, the rabbit ears, and you know, signals turn left, turn right," and I'm like, "What are these people talking about?" So let's start from the beginning. Normal ventricular depolarization starts the left side of the heart first. I guess that's normal. Just so you know, that's just like a point to say out there. A bundle branch block is a disruption in impulse conduction from the bundle of His. Um, it goes through the right or left bundle branch to the Purkinje fibers. So if you have a bundle branch block, that's a block in the lower part of the heart. Now, if a delay occurs in one of the bundle branches, the ventricles will not be depolarized at the same time because there's a block and then you have your right and your left side. Of course, it says it's going to the left side first, but the point is your heart has a way of doing stuff. If there's a block anywhere, it's messing up its system and they're not going to be going off at the same time. The unblocked branch is gonna go first. Now, another thing for you to be aware of is that the block conduction must pass through the myocardium to stimulate the other ventricles. So that means that it's actually going to travel through the actual heart. So it's going to just go to one side, contract one side of the ventricles, and then travel through the heart around the block and contract the other side. So that's how the whole ventricles are going to be depolarized. So you know your QRS is normally less than or equal to 0.12. So once you start getting beyond that, you know that there's something going on with your ventricles, and the blocks are usually really really wide. Another thing that they explained is something called the terminal force, which is the final or the last portion of the QRX complex. The reason why that's important is because that's how you determine what side the block is on. So your right bundle branch block means your right ventricles are depolarized last. Your current is going from left to right because a block is in the right. It's going to the left and traveling weirdly to the right. So you're going to see a positive deflection in your EKG. With your left bundle branch block, the left ventricle is depolarized last because there's a block in that left branch. So the current is going to go where it goes easiest to the right first, and then it's going to travel through the myocardium to depolarize the left. With the left bundle branch block, you're going to see a negative deflection in the EKG. So the way they explained it to me was like this. I'm just putting like a little shading over there so it makes sense. So you just understand my shadings. Okay? This up here is your right bundle branch block. That's your J point. This is the end of your QRS. I don't know if this is backwards for you. This is your J point. That's the end of your QRS. You're looking basically to see if it's positive, then it's right. If it's negative, like going beneath the isoelectric line, then it's left. You use your J point as a reference point of how to measure it. And then I understood when I saw this what they were talking about with the bunny ears. So I guess their assumption is if it's a right bundle branch block, it will always have bunny ears. I don't know if that's necessarily the truth. And then also I saw what they were talking about with the driver's thing, that if you're driving and you put on your right signal, you put it up, and if you're putting on your left signal, you put the signal down. So that's kind of what you can remember when you're looking at your EKG. If the QRS is going positive backwards from the J point, then that means it's right. If it's going negative backwards from the J point, then it's going left. The right bundle branch, they said, is mostly benign, so you just monitor it. The left bundle branch, you want to evaluate that for cardiomyopathies, coronary diseases, hypertension, valvular heart disease, and these people are usually going to need a pacemaker. Now, the way I was telling you works all good and fine and well and dandy until somebody has Wolff, Parkinson's, White, whatever syndrome, WPW syndrome, where they normally have wide atrial activity. So if they have that WPW, I can't help you, or you need to have your iPhone ready and Google it. They also have another type of heart rate called nonspecific intraventricular conduction delay. This is not your typical bundle branch morphology. That's something that you need to look out for. I guess we can quickly go over pacers. I usually don't have a problem with pacers, and most cardiac monitors have a setting for pacers, so you can ask the person, and if they say they have a pacer, boom, you can turn on that setting, and you're brilliant. Look, this person's paced. Um, Now, this is something that I didn't know. You know how, like, when you're looking at your rhythms and you're like, okay, there's a little spike, and then you look at some other rhythms and you're like, okay, that person has a big spike, but you don't really know the difference between the two? Well, apparently the little spike is because the doctor has placed a bipolar lead on the heart. So the positive and negative are really close in the heart. The electrical conduction doesn't have really far to go. Pew! That's it. So it measures very small on the EKG. If they put just a negative, I think it's just a negative lead on the heart, then the conduction has to travel, I guess, from there to the actual pacemaker. It has to travel a lot further. So it's going to look bigger on the EKG. So that's awesome. I didn't know that. So the unipolar, or the one lead, has a bigger spike. Bipolar has two leads on the heart, and it has a smaller spike. Now, obviously, if you have atrial pacing pacer, it's you're going to see the spikes right before the piece. And obviously, that's not effective if you have some kind of AV block. If you see ventricular pacing, you won't see really any P's, or they might have an underlying fibrillatory, like atrial fibrillation rhythm. That one, you'll see the big whopping like ventricular contractions after the pacer spike. But it's not that great because if there is anything going on in the atrium, it can't coordinate the two. If you have a dual chamber, that's going to stimulate your right atrium and your right ventricle, mimicking normal cardiac physiology. And it's also going to preserve your atrial kick. So that's why they do that. And if you have your biventricular, that's going to be 3 leads. You're going to have one on each ventricle and one on the right atrium. That's going to improve your cardiac output and your exercise tolerance. So that's all the notes that I took, and that's all the studying that I did, and maybe hopefully I can get some more stuff done tonight if the powers that be allow me. We shall see. Godspeed for you all.